Welcome to episode number 16 of the JD Outdoors podcast. Follow me on Instagram at JD underscore outdoors 1773. My guest today will be Tom Stange. You can follow him on Instagram at Smallmouth Freaks. Today we will be talking about fishing a blade bait. How you doing today?
Hey, how's it going, Jordan?
Good, good, good. Can you give us a little background on your fishing career, how and when you started fishing and tournament fishing especially? Just a little rundown of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I probably started off pretty much like every other angler. I grew up in Connecticut, started trout fishing, bass fishing, started getting into the tournaments in the early 2000s. Bought my first bass boat. I think it was like a 16-foot skeeter. Started fishing some tournaments on Candlewood Lake. Some guys will probably be familiar with that.
Yep.
And once I started doing that, I mean, I just got hooked. It was just the whole competitive side of it and everything like that just reeled me right in. So then I started going to some bigger local tournaments. Did some of the BFLs, the Bassmaster Weekend Series, which we were talking about before. Tried my hand at some of the Everstarts back then. I think they're called the Toyota Series now.
Yep.
Couple of the Bassmaster Tours, and then went from there. Now I'm trying, hopefully, someday, try to qualify for the Classic and the Elites through the New York Bass Nation.
Yep, that's the goal, right? That's
it. See how it goes, man. I'm gonna give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You got nothing to lose, you know. It's like you said earlier when we were talking. Like even getting your butt kicked, it's fun experience, and you learn a lot, so it's worth it.
Can't get there if you don't try, man.
Exactly, exactly. So, what would you say is your best bass fishing memory?
Oh, I've got two that stand out in my head just off the cuff. Probably in my 20s. My mother lives on a nice private lake over New Hampshire, and I went out one day fishing with a couple of buddies, and we just whooped on these bass. And I don't know what it was about that day, but it just kind of started the fire inside me to want to get back into it and compete at it. At that point, I was looking at doing some tournaments and stuff, and I didn't have a boat yet. These guys had a boat, and it's just something about that day. And I would say that day started me competitive fishing. And then the other one, I think, would be actually winning one of my first tournaments on the Hudson River, out of Catskill. That was actually one of the Bassmaster Weekend Series ones. I grew up fishing the Connecticut River, which is a tidal river, and it really paid tribute to me fishing the Hudson. Never been there before, practiced there a couple of days, and ended up doing what I did back on my home river, and it ended up giving me a win. So that was a pretty memorable day for me.
And that's awesome for sure. It's awesome when you can take something from one body of water and relate it somewhere else, and it works out for you. And
yeah, and generally fishing tidal rivers is tough anyways, but it was almost like being back home, and it was such a comfortable day for me.
Yeah,
it worked well.
So obviously you've fished a lot of different places and have a lot of experience, but where is your dream place to fish? Or have you been there before? Is it some place that you still want to go to? Or
Oh man, my dream place I'm in love with Thousand Islands and Lake Ontario.
Yeah,
That's to me that's my home water. Like this year alone, I think I did 11 trips up there. Eventually, we're gonna end up buying a weekend house up there, but right now, my dream lake I think would be Simcoe.
Yeah, all right.
Once that border opens back up, man.
I was just gonna say we got a little bit with you there right now.
Well, I see all these videos on Instagram and YouTube of these guys catching these 6, 7, 8 pounders. It's like, man, I got to get up there and give it a go.
No doubt. And it's weird because a lot of people, I think when you ask them what their dream lake is, it's gonna go largemouth oriented more so.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think you and I, smallmouth freaks, as we are, it's just that's our love is just smallmouth, big smallmouth.
Either that or my second would be Falcon Lake down in Texas.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Well,
yeah, it's awesome to hear everyone's dream places. Like I've got a in my notes app in my phone, I've got a list that I just keep adding to of all the places because I've only fished outside of New York State once ever. So I've got a huge list of places I want to start knocking off the list and
Nice.
getting
I
that.
actually have I've got a map on my wall over here, places I circled that I want to go.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. That's a cool idea too.
There's a lot of circles on that map.
You got to fish everywhere, man. It's all about the experience and like obviously so many different fisheries fish different and it's just you learn something every place you go and I can't even
Yeah.
like fishing like the deep reservoirs or anything like that because we don't really have much like that near me. So,
Yeah, definitely.
but let's dig right into the meat and potatoes of the podcast today, and our main topic. Uh, what is your favorite setup or setups if you have multiple for fishing blade baits? Go over the rod, the reel, the line, the lure, what weight you use, what hooks you use, so on. So if you want to just break that down, feel free.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's kind of cool up here. A lot of guys, I've been getting a lot of questions lately on Instagram about blade baits, and it's kind of like a cult following up here in the Northeast. Um, I started fishing blades probably 15 years ago. I picked it up over on Lake Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire. It's like a little underworld cult following over there of blade baits. And I was seeing these guys catch, good smallies all winter long in the early spring. And I'm like, man, how are they doing this? And I finally figured it out. And I started getting into it and I used it down in Connecticut. Um, got pretty good with it, kind of gave it up for a little while. And then once I moved up here to Vermont, fishing Champlain and going up to Thousand Islands, some of these local lakes, I picked it back up again. And it's just deadly in the colder water. I mean, I've tried it in the summertime. I haven't had too much luck yet with it, but so I'm using. I keep it simple. I get mine from a guy that's actually on Instagram, Dale Wyman. He makes some custom color ones, and I keep it simple. I use basically 4 colors. I'll do gold, silver, white, and then like a purchase color, chartreuse color, and that's it. Mostly 1/2 ounce to 3/4. Pretty much those weights I can get down to, like I'll fish 3/4 down to 60 feet.
Okay.
1/2 ounce is good for like 10 feet down to, on a calm day, you can get it down to 40 feet, 50 feet, no problem. I tend to like the heavier ones just for the feel.
Yeah.
A lot of guys run their blades on spinning gear with braid and then obviously a fluorocarbon leader. I've tried that in the past and to me, it feels too heavy on a spinning rod. So I've gone to a casting rod. I end up using like a jerkbait rod, like a 610 medium. I've experimented with rods up to like 7'3". I've got one now that I tried. It's a 7.3 medium from I think it's a Shimano. Jerkbait rod or a stiffer crankbait rod because you're fishing a treble hook bait. And there's been guys that fish blades consistently know that your hookup ratio with those things is kind of like on a good day 50-50.
Yeah.
Just the way the fish hit it and the weight of the bait and all that stuff. And I found that I have a better hookup with those casting rods, the medium action, softer tip rods.
Gotcha.
I've tried like parabolic crankbait rods and they don't have that. The way I fish them, I chuck them out, let them hit bottom, and I'll lift and drop them all the way back to the boat. So, you guys, you can chuck a 3/4 ounce blade bait, got like 80, 90 yards.
Yep.
So you get a fish on the fall way out there and you're fishing one of them limber rods, you're not going to hook up with that fish.
Too much.
So you kind of want that happy medium, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I've tried the braid before, which actually is really nice because you can get that. The feel with that braided line and that blade bait down there, it's awesome. The only problem is the time of year that I'm using it is when the water's super cold.
Yeah.
The weather up here is super cold, so the braid tends to hold that water and it just freezes your eyelets up.
Yep, for sure.
So I end up going to straight fluorocarbon. Pretty much 12-pound, sometimes 10, but 12 is my go-to. I use the CR 12-pound Invisix or the Brazix. Still has a little bit of stretch, but the hookup ratio with that combined with those jerkbait rods has been pretty decent for me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys will modify their blades. I kind of run them stock. The guy that I get them from, like I said, Dale, there, he puts pretty decent hooks on them, so I don't change the hooks out. What I will do is sometimes I'll put a split ring and a swivel on the top, especially when you're fishing them things deep and you start reeling them up and they'll spin on you. You'll get all kinds of, knots and stuff. Sometimes I'll throw a feather hook on the tail.
Okay.
And then recently what I've tried doing is those little willow blade spinners that I think it's Z-Man that makes. You can put in the there you go. Right there. Yep.
This is just from making my spinner baits and whatnot, but yeah, just a little willow on there.
So that company right there, Steel Shad, I didn't even know it is actually right up the street from me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, probably my favorite color. There it is. Sexy Shad.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it.
See, that's a nice color there because that almost mimics like we have rainbow smelt out here in our way.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm usually trying to mimic with the blades, and that matches perfectly.
Yeah. So what reel are you using on there? Are you using a super high gear ratio reel to just pick up the line, or moderate? What are you using?
Yeah, I'm using either a 7.3 or an 8.1.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. The one I'm using now is an 8.2 SLX, Shimano SLX.
Okay.
And that seems to be the best right now for me. Because the way I fish mine a little differently. I don't, a lot of guys will hop it and then follow it back down to the bottom on kind of semi line. What I found up here for mine is I'm hopping it, giving it until I can feel it vibrate. You get that quick little zoom, and I'll let it fall back to the bottom. And what I've found, especially this year for some reason, is as I let it fall quick to the bottom, that's when they're hitting it. You go to lift up for that next lift, and they're on there.
Yeah.
I mean, doing it the other way obviously works. I mean, there's so many different ways you can fish it, but the way that I don't know if these fish in these lakes up here have become accustomed to the blades because a lot of guys throw them. So try to do a couple of little different things, and it seems to work. But by doing that, by letting that thing fall and then fish, they're either hitting it on the fall or they're hitting it on the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times I'll see them, they're hooked up under their jaw or they're, one hook in the mouth and one on the side of the head. So it's, like I said, that's that 50-50 hookup ratio when you get them things.
Yeah, my first day ever bass fishing with them, I'd caught a walleye on them prior, but like the first day I've ever really hooked up with bass on them, I was fishing an open tournament, I believe. I think it was an open tournament, not our club tournament, on Lake Erie with my buddy Justin Warner, and we were throwing them on casting gear, and we both lost like the first 5 we ever hooked up with. It was both our first times using them because we were setting the hook and reeling, but we weren't prepared for how fast the fish were coming up out of the water. So you come up, swing once, your blade bait would go flying, would go back down. And the big lesson I learned there was change out the hooks because they did not have good hooks on them to start with. So like I learned that lesson, and high gear ratio reel because I was actually using a spinnerbait rod for it, which I liked the feel of it and everything. It might have been a little too, moderate, but I was using a 6-to-1 or excuse me, 6-8-to-1 gear ratio reel, and it just wasn't fast enough. So I think like next year I want to go with like an 8 or something like that, just so I can really pick up that slack as quick as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It seems to work pretty good, especially in the deeper water, because you're picking up, a lot of times I think there was one of my videos the other day where you'll see me, I'm hopping it and I feel the fish on there and I reel it and I reel a pretty good amount of line in before the rod actually bows up. The fish hit it on the fall and then ran towards me. Yeah. So and that was still, I think with that 8-2 ratio reel, I'm still trying to catch up to it and then it loads up. So I actually might try one of those burner reels, those 10-to-1 reels.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Especially in 40, 50 feet of water, that's a lot of line to pick up. You
Yeah,
know?
we were fishing in like 40, 44 foot of water that day, and it was actually it might have been it was the Douglas Rods Big Money Open on Erie.
Oh, nice.
That
Nice.
was the one where my buddy Andy and Andy Full and Destin Demarian almost got 30 pounds.
Saw that.
I was so happy to be there and witness that because that was just something else. But
Awesome.
yeah, we were just like losing fish after fish, and we're just looking at each other like, what is going on right now? Just why are like we ended up getting like 3 in the box on the blade bait or 1 on football jig, few on a blade bait, and it's just like day's almost over. We got 6 pounds of smallmouth. It's not happening. So
I think that's why a lot of guys don't fish them. They just, I don't know if they just don't understand them or they have that same issue and they're just like, the heck with these things. And it can be frustrating.
yeah, I
Definitely.
decided I'm gonna keep with it because it's like I just knew so many people catch them on the blade bait, and I'm like, and I'm hearing so much about it, seeing it on Wired to Fish, seeing it on Bassmaster, seeing it everywhere, and I'm like, all right, these things have to work. There's no way that we're just that bad at fishermen and that the lure sucks and that we're not catching anything. Like they work. We just got to figure it out and dial it in.
One of my goals, and I probably shouldn't say because I know these guys will probably try to use it on me, is up on Thousand Islands, especially in the river in those deeper holes. I'm dying to try to get that thing to work on those deeper fish, just as an alternative to drop shot and dragging. You know what I mean? I think in the right spots and the right conditions, it could probably get them to fire it up. But I haven't. The only thing I've caught up there on them yet is like big drums or big walleye.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to get the smallies to hit them up there. I don't
yeah.
know why.
No,
But
that's a good idea though. It definitely like with enough practice, it should work because it just and especially it's something that like or if it's summertime and they're super deep or whatnot, like it's something that they probably don't see almost ever in the summer, you know.
yeah, I mean, I've got them. I've got it to work a little bit out in the lake during the summertime. But the river, for some reason, I don't know. Maybe it's just not the right conditions. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
eventually we get it to work.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you try long enough and hard enough, you're gonna catch one on it. There's no doubt about it. It's
Yep.
gonna happen.
And it does catch big fish. Guys think it's not. It does, man. It catches big fish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's such a it's one of the lures that you look at and you're like, that looks so simple, but somehow it just works really well.
Yeah, and I don't like. I've been fishing one for, like I said, forever, and sometimes I still don't understand why why they like it so much in that cold water.
Yeah,
The vibration, the flash. I don't know. All I know is it works, so I'm gonna keep using it.
yeah. Do you ever go down to like smaller 3/8 ounce blade bait in any situations, or are you always the half 3/4 type?
No, I like. I know there's a lot of guys that fish in shallow. I don't. I go to something else. I strictly use it for deeper water for me.
Oh,
Probably the majority of it for me is 20 to 50 feet. If I'm going shallower than 20 feet, I go to other options.
yeah,
I know guys that do fish them, quarter ounce, 3/8 ounce, like some of the smaller. I think it's the Jackal Keyburns and the
yeah,
Demiki Balts, and
yeah.
they have good luck with them. It's just for me, it just doesn't. I don't know. Just haven't tried.
So now, when you're fishing the blade bait, is there anything that you're going to do different or change if you're trying to specifically target largemouth or smallmouth? I know recently on your videos you've been having an issue where the largemouth is right where the smallmouth are supposed to be, but if you're specifically trying to target one or the other, how do you go about that, or does it stay generally the same?
Uh, yeah, I don't know what's up with those largemouth lately, man. I mean, I'm not going to complain, but they're definitely lost because they're in 40 feet of water. Um, no, there used to be you read a bunch of articles and it was always silver for largemouth and gold for smallmouth.
Mm,
Uh, I've never found that to be true in my uh, experiences with them. But for one thing, I have found though is in the lakes that I fish, the largemouth like the white ones for whatever reason. I'll still catch smallies on them, but if I'm gonna go and look for a big largemouth, I'll throw a white one on and I'll just put a little black. I'll take a little Sharpie and just put a little black mark in the center of it for something to target it.
yeah.
And if for whatever reason they seem to like that white one.
Hmm.
Um, That's really the only thing I've noticed, but I've been catching them on whatever color.
Yeah.
This particular lake is weird. The one I've been fishing lately is if there's loads of perch in there, I can't get them to hit a perch blade for some reason. I can throw that thing all day and I won't catch them. I'll switch to a gold or a silver one and start catching them right away. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. No sense.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's those little things that, like, to us, we're like, oh, it should work, but then you throw something in that works that you're like, that should not work today for any reason. Like,
No, just when you think you got them figured out, they're like,
yeah,
nope.
yeah,
Yeah,
180. Yep.
it's crazy.
Hey, you did. Thank you. You did a good job of breaking that down for us and giving us a look at blade bait fishing. Because for me, when I started, I know the resource was there to kind of learn more about blade baits and whatnot, but it's nice to hear like an exact breakdown and everything of like the specific rod, reel, line, because you hear a lot of people do throw them on spinning. So I would recommend trying either or and see what works best for you. But like I definitely thought the casting was a lot easier to, especially because I was vertical fishing it, so it just was a lot easier to just unspool it, let it fall, and then it's right there, and you're just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. The one thing I will say with the spinning gear is obviously if you got a good reel, you've got that drag to back you up.
Yeah.
Um, with the casting gear, it's a little difficult. Like I'll set my drag to a kind of a medium setting where I'm still getting a good hook set,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as I feel the weight of the fish, and it's because when they start surging on that casting gear is when you're going to lose
Yeah.
90% of the time. So what I'll do is as I'm fighting that fish and I can kind of sense how hard it's pulling, I'll just back that drag off a little bit or just tighten it up real quick. It seems to help. I mean, you're still got a chance of losing them, but
Yeah.
for me, I think that's probably the biggest advantage with going with the spinning gear is you have that drag that you can set. But like I said, for me personally, I don't like a 3/4 ounce blade on a spinning rod. To me, is just it seems too heavy,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of losing the feel of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And then if you start getting into too stiff of a rod, then it's not going to give you the same hookup and all that. So
Yeah, and there's a couple of like one of my buddies fishes it pretty consistently, and he's been using a 7'6" spy bait rod,
hmm,
and he's had good success with it. So I might give that a try just to see what it feels like. I don't know what model or what brand it is, but it's
yeah,
7'6" medium, and it's designed specifically for spy baits. It might be like a cash and rod or one
yeah,
of those brands, but he's had really good luck with that rod. It's got the length to pick up the line. It's
yeah,
got great action. I think he's using like a 3,000. It's a 3,000 size reel. So you got a lot of line. You got a good drag on it. So that could be a good alternative to try.
yeah. Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, like mainly because I was fishing at vertical, my mind was kind of automatically going to like I need shorter rods. But like you were saying, if you're casting it out and hopping it back to the boat, then obviously the longer rod's going to do you a lot of good. And
Yeah, and that's kind of why. So my normal setup is that 6'10" medium, um, and I get good casting distance out of it. So if I am fishing it far, which is kind of my go-to where I'm fishing, is I'll chuck it out as far as I can, hop it back. But then obviously, you see a fish on the graph below you.
yeah,
I can wind that thing back in, and it's still got the right length where I can just vertical jig it.
yeah,
Um, but that's like I said, I've been experimenting with that 7.3 for doing those longer bomb casts and hopping it back. Because you can have that bait in the water for 10, 15 minutes if you really wanted to. If you're fishing it
mhm,
super slow,
yeah,
you get one out. Like I said, 80 yards, and you get one hitting it on the fall. You got that nice length of that rod to lift that line.
yeah.
So,
Can't get that with
but
a 6.5 foot rod. So
no, it's kind of tough. I mean, you can, but it's tough. That's
yeah,
a lot of line to pick up, you know. But
for sure.
yeah, to each his own, man. I mean, I would say just get out and try it. The right rod and the right line setup definitely make a difference.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to say see an immediate difference, but you fish one rod for one day and you go to that nice medium action rod the next day and you'll see a huge difference.
yeah, and
You know,
the feel on it when you're jigging it up and down and everything like that is with a nice rod you can feel it way more obviously, and it's just it's a unique bait to learn. But once you start catching them on it, it's kind of addicting because the way that they hit it, it's just like you got to be ready at all times for when they're about to smack it.
Yeah. And when when the water's super cold and they start stacking up, I think you'd be hard pressed to find another lure that would rival the catch ratio of that thing.
Yeah.
You get a pot of fish on that screen, you just start vertical jigging down to them. And you get that school, fired up. That blade bait just hammers them.
Yeah, my buddy was telling me, and I never really crossed my mind before, but he was like, "Well, fishing with a blade bait's kind of like ice fishing," and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you're vertical fishing it. That's the thing that's going to get them fired up. Is just because you're putting it right in front of their face, and like obviously a drop shot, you're doing the same thing, but it's not flashy as this, and putting off as much vibration and whatnot." So it's like that's what gets them fired up because it's like a reaction bait. A lot of times is going to get them going. So
Yep. Yep. And that's another thing. People are thinking, oh my God, the water's in the 30s or 40s. The fish aren't active. I'm telling you what, that live scope has opened up my eyes big time to how active these fish are in this cold water. It's incredible. The last couple of weeks just fishing out there, the water's been in the 40s, and I'm watching these fish come up from being on the bottom in 44 feet of water to chase my bait up, and I mean, it's crazy.
yeah, sure. All right. Well, I'm going to get into the last few questions that we got here to kind of wrap things up. Kind of some fun questions and a serious question to kind of get you thinking. But first, what is your favorite snack on the water? Everyone loves to eat while they're fishing. It kind of goes hand in hand. So, what is your favorite
Yeah, oh yeah. My wife's always making fun of me because every 10 minutes I'm snacking.
snack?
Number one, I would say peanut M&Ms.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know why. I try to eat healthy when I'm on the boat, but it just never happens.
Yeah. Oh no, I understand that for sure. It's like you bring up protein bars. You bring an apple because you can't have bananas on the boat.
Ooh.
So you bring an apple, and then I pack a PB&J, and by midday I'm like, do I really want the apple? No, I'm just gonna go straight for the PB&J.
See, you can't go wrong with PB&J.
No,
Can't go wrong. But that's why I get peanut butter, peanut M&Ms. It's got the peanuts and the chocolate. Can't
it's
go wrong
quick,
with
it's
that.
easy, yeah, pretty mess free too.
Yeah.
Don't want to get crumbs all over the boat because then you gotta pick them up and gotta keep
That's
them
a good question.
nice
I
and
like
clean. All right, so then the last question, which I think is a pretty important one, and it's interesting to get different people's, you know, mindsets behind it. But do you have any tips for staying positive on the water, whether it be fun fishing or tournament fishing? Obviously, tournament fishing can be pretty stressful because you're in a competition, which you're in a competition whether you're fishing or not because it's you versus the fish all the time. So it's kind of can be frustrating because we don't know what they're thinking a lot of the time. So, what are your tips to kind of stay positive during those situations when it's getting tough?
Oh, that's an awesome question, man. I mean, that's something we all struggle with. We all get those days where those demons start fighting in your head and the wheels come off the train.
Yep.
We've all been there. Um, I remember hearing, I think it was Brandon Pollock said a couple years ago about controlling the controllables.
Hmm.
Don't worry about the rest. And that, for some reason, that stuck in my head. And I mean, it's something that I still struggle with today. You know how it goes. You get out there and one day you're whacking them, the next day you can't catch anything. And it starts to get in there and eat at you. And that sticks in my head, and I kind of just, okay. I tell myself, hey, man, there's fish in this lake somewhere that are biting.
Hmm.
Somebody's always catching them.
Yep.
Figure out what's going on. And it's a never ending struggle. It's crazy, but they're always biting somewhere. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you'll see guys losing fish and they start freaking out. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I've been there before. I ain't breaking any rods or anything, but especially during a tournament, you lose a nice fish and you freak out.
Yeah.
Man, don't dwell on it. Just pick up a rod and just keep chucking. As hard as it is, just keep doing it. And at the end of the day, dude, you're fishing.
Yeah.
You're fishing. It could be worse.
Yep. That's what my dad always says. He said, you could be working, but you're fishing right now. So.
You know, Or, hey, you're not catching anything, man. Pick up your confidence bait and just go to town.
Yep.
You keep chucking that thing, eventually you're going to get something. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's an awesome question, man. I don't think there's a magic answer for that. It's everyone's got their own thing.
Yeah. For
You
sure.
know,
Uh,
I just try to keep that, like Gerald Swindle says, that PMA, that positive mental attitude. No, that definitely goes a long way.
yeah, it's just awesome because like, obviously there's no perfect formula for everyone, but like when you get little bits and pieces from different people on what they do, you can kind of put it all together or take bits and pieces of what they do and use it for yourself and kind of get it. 'Cause the whole confidence lure thing, like for sure, that's my what if I'm not catching anything when I'm largemouth fishing, if I don't pick up a chatterbait, something's seriously wrong with me that day because like that's just my confidence thing when it comes to them. And when it's smallmouth, if I don't pick up a Ned rig at some point during the day, then either I know that I'm on something else or something's gone seriously wrong because that's my confidence thing for smallmouth. So it's kind of back to basics, I guess.
Yep. Well, it's tough, man. It's like you'll see some guys. I'll fish with some guys out there that just they lose a fish and it's just the day's done. You know, they just lose it. And like I said, I've had days like that, but man, I try not to let it get in my head.
Hmm.
You know, once you do, the wheels come off and it's done.
Yeah.
Once you get to that point, it's hard to go back. You
Yeah.
know,
That's for
especially
sure.
if it's in the beginning of the day. But just keep trucking.
Yeah, for sure,
You
man.
know, that's it. Bait's in the water. You're going to get something eventually.
I mean, hey, when we all started fishing with a worm and bobber, that's basically what we were doing. We were just sitting there hoping for it, and it
Yep.
happened. So
Yep.
now that we have all this knowledge, we can definitely put it to use and have a better chance of catching something.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, well, thank you, man, for coming on today. Thanks for being a part of the show. I learned a lot from you. It was nice talking to you. I hope the listeners learned a lot as well on blade bait fishing. Is there anyone that you'd like to shout out? Sponsors, pro staffs, anything like that you'd like to shout out?
I'm going to shout out to my wife, man. You can check her out at Bass Girl Fishing on the Instagram. Um, without her support, there's no way I'd be able to do this. And
Yeah,
that's honest to God. Honest to God. Happy wife, happy life, man.
there you go.
You know. But I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you very much. It
Yeah,
was
no
awesome.
problem. I mean, your Instagram's awesome. I love seeing it every day, and you're just
Thank you.
you're a positive guy, positive angler, and you have tons of information to share, and you're willing to share it with me all the time we're talking on Instagram. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime.
Hopefully we can get out fishing this summer.
Definitely. Definitely. I'll see you up at the Federation tournament, or the Nation. Sorry, the Nation.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening and tune in for episode number 17 of the JD Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Woo Tungsten, Tacticalories, X Zone Lures, and the JD Outdoor Lure Company.